In 1934, there lived a very well-known, high-class socialite by the name of Madame Delphine LaLaurie. She was known to be quite extravagant and always hosted parties at her mansion that she bought upon marrying her third husband, Dr. Leonard LaLaurie. One day, an immense fire broke out in the mansion, and a group of locals in the neighborhood went to go and terminate it. Upon arriving inside the estate, they discovered a 70-year-old slave chained up to the oven whilst the house was burning around her, whereas Delphine was scurrying about, concerned about the fate of her furniture. Once they helped her release the old woman and put out the fire, she revealed something that made their heads spin. She confessed that she set the fire herself, but only because she found death to be better than the constant torture and pain that Delphine was putting her and the other slaves through. The 70-year-old slave then escorted them to the attic, revealing a rather sickening sight. Inside the attic, there were 7 slaves, and by the looks of it, one can just tell that they were brutalized in the cruelest of ways. Like the 70-year-old woman, these slaves were also chained up to the wall and wore spike collars that added to their extreme discomfort. I'm going to get into just how badly these individuals were treated because, you guys, warning, this is just disgusting. Eyewitnesses saw that the slaves were bruised and bloodied. Their eyes had been gouged out, and their mouths were literally sewn shut with excrement inside. On top of this monstrosity, their skins were peeled off. But it gets worse. Witnesses claim to have also seen one woman whose bones were broken purposefully and then rearranged to look like a crab. And many of the slaves' heads had been drilled open. A spoon in the attic was found, and it was thought that Delphine had used this utensil to stir their brains. Besides the 7 living slaves, there were corpses of previous slaves that were mutilated beyond recognition. Organs were missing left and right, and it is said that LaLaurie's husband, who was a physician, had also been conducting experiments on them. The public was shocked at this grotesque discovery because all this time, LaLaurie was showing an excessive amount of kindness towards slaves when she was out in the public's view. Now they all realized that this woman had been putting on an act the entire time. The deeper they went into the mansion, the more they learned of her true nature towards her slaves, and the picture that was once blurry with speculation and doubt was becoming very clear. Considering the torture chamber in the attic, the locals also recounted 2 other very real reports that occurred prior to the house fire. They put 2 and 2 together. Such reports accurately painted Delphine as this complete sadist who found pleasure and fulfillment in torturing slaves. One such report occurred in 1833 when there was a man who threw himself out the 3rd-story window, which was subsequently sealed shut with cement. Another true report was even more sad. A 12-year-old slave girl was brushing Delphine's hair, and when she unintentionally pulled a knot, Delphine raged and whipped her. When the girl managed to escape, this monster of a woman attempted to chase her down. Once she entered the roof, the girl then jumped to her death. LaLaurie tried to hide this death, but her attempts failed when the police discovered the 12-year-old's body in a well. Guess what her punishment was? The police basically gave her a fine amounting to $300 and then ordered her to sell all 9 slaves. LaLaurie obeyed these rules, but then secretively bought all the slaves back so that she could satisfy her desire to abusing them again. I mean, the fact that they preferred to die than to face whatever ordeal Delphine had planned out for them speaks volumes. The locals were enraged at this sight, and upon releasing the slaves, they began to destroy the house, smashing the windows and doors apart until only the walls of the mansion were the only structures standing. Delphine's husband was living separately in the mansion at the time, so his involvement in these brutal tortures wasn't so clear. When questioned about it, he did give a highly suspicious answer and said that people should mind their own business. Delphine was nowhere in sight, and it is said that upon being exposed, she fled to somewhere in France and died sometime in Paris, with some archives claiming that she died in 1849. The house still stands to this day and has been a tourist attraction until becoming a private residence later on. It is said that the slaves were buried underneath this property, and people claim that it is haunted. Given the dark history associated with it, I really can't doubt those claims that the tortured spirits still linger. Honestly, when I first heard about this case, I was just utterly shocked at the extent this woman went to fuel her sadism. What drove her to commit such heinous crimes? I know that when it comes to heinous acts like this, people want to know what the criminal's childhood was like to find out the root cause of such evilness. What I discovered was that when Delphine was 4 years of age, a slave rebellion revolution occurred in Paris, known as the Haitian Revolution, where slaves killed slaveholders and fought to get their freedom back. back. It was said that one slave killed Delphine's uncle in the process. I'm wondering if this fueled Delphine's sadism. On the other hand, I'm like, you got to be one twisted person to do what she did. Because she not only murdered slaves, she kept 9 of them alive to torture and make them practically beg to be dead. The violence she birthed was quite excessive, making me believe that it has to have been other reasons she did all of this. What do you guys think? Sadly, we won't ever know what her reasoning was behind the madness, though we are at least aware that such events existed. Regardless of the driven force, nothing should even remotely excuse any of her actions, in my opinion. I look forward to reading your guys' thoughts about this horrifying case in the comment section below, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting content.